numbers of a typical rent-to-own deal and say, what's happening here? Why are these numbers not aligning? Why do most people think rent-to-owns are not a good thing? You know, if we do things a little bit differently, if we move the numbers around, if we actually make the rent-to-owns about the home buyer side of the equation versus the investor side of the equation, we could actually create a significant, predictable, consistent cash flow.
We actually won the real estate game a lot earlier. We were distracted with all these other financial, you know, fancy techniques like rent to own, like student rental, like land development, like all this other stuff.
Honestly, we sat on milk crates in our house. Like, we had no furniture. We'd go dumpster diving to get the furniture. Kids these days, like, my goodness, their parents are actually your clients. It's really not the students anymore. The parents are the ones who are signing the lease. The parents are guarantors. Like, the kids are not paying their own rents. The parents are paying rent. So I have zero rental defaults at all. My rent is paid every single month by all these parents who are really careful about it.
What is up, you guys? Matt McKeever here again with the Mothers of Real Estate, and we thought it'd be great to kind of sit down and chat through. All three of them have very different investment strategies, but all have been successful in real estate. So we figured let's just kind of do a quick fire round on the three different strategies that they're currently using to crush it in real estate. Quick reminder, if you guys haven't seen the first video, jump over, check that out. We get deep into their backstory and they explain some really great tips for us to avoid so we don't have to learn from the School of Hard Knocks. That tuition's very expensive in time and money. But quick reminder, we have Gillian, Monika, and Rachel. And so Gillian's the student rental, Monika's buy and hold and BRRRR, and you're rent to own, right, Rachel? So let's start with Rachel, rent to own. What's the story there?
Okay, so as you know, tenants and toilets is really the impetus for where I landed. I had one desire, and I really wanted to replace my corporate job income. I was tired of asking for vacations, holiday pay, raises, all of that stuff, and I knew I could control my time. I really wanted to control my time. So I thought, okay, well, the tenants and toilets thing is just, I have a huge aversion to that. The cash flow wasn't big enough to replace my income. So I started investigating what other opportunities are there. I went to a seminar and heard about this rent-to-own opportunity, and I thought, okay, well, this sounds kind of cool. Only problem was that everyone that I talked to kind of said rent-to-owns are kind of a 50-50. Sometimes they work, but most of the time it's a bit of a scam. And I thought, that doesn't make any sense. Like, really, there's got to be a better way. So I am blessed to be married to a skeptical man. Mr. No, I kind of said, I have a job for you. And I asked him to kind of look at the numbers of a typical rent-to-own deal and say, what's happening here? Why are these numbers not aligning? Why do most people think rent-to-owns are not a good thing? And he was able to kind of see, like, you know, if we do things a little bit differently, if we move the numbers around, if we actually make the rent-to-owns about the home buyer side of the equation versus the investor side of the equation, we could actually create a significant, predictable, consistent cash flow. And I kind of thought, okay, great, but how? You know, the biggest thing is like, how? I don't know how, and he's a how kind of guy. So off I went, talking to different people, and I found a mentor who had done 20 rent-owns at the time, and I kind of cornered him at a meeting. I said, you're going to teach me everything you know, man. And he's like, okay. Crazy lady. and so, you know, we agreed to a price. He sat with us for 6 months, and just kind of after hours, we were diving into the details, and we saw where he was going wrong, believe it or not. So our mentor was teaching us what not to do. And we basically used that as an opportunity to say, okay, well, if we're going to rejig something so that rent-to-owns become predictable and offer consistent cash flow, we could actually be generating $600, $700, $800, $900 a month in cash flow from every property. So I'm kind of doing the math. How many properties do I need? Not as many as I would have if I had tenants and toilets. Let's move into this. And that's how
awesome.
we got started.
That's a great story. Monika, so buy and hold and BRRRR.
Yes, boring, buy, rent, hold. So for those who don't know my story, my goal was to be a stay-at-home mom. So we have 4 small kids. This happened before we had the 4 kids. And, you know, I was trying to figure out, you know, what do I have to do that I could be home with my kids, but we can also build a strong foundation, like a financial foundation for our future. So we were doing things the traditional way, like not real estate at all. And our money was not growing growing properly. So we got fed up. We wanted to grow our money in the buy, rent, hold. So our initial goal was to fund the university education for all 4 children. So we were kind of looking long term. And so it was a big price tag because it kind of felt like me not working full time. It was kind of financial suicide. Vaughn was making good money, but everyone living the lifestyle we wanted on one salary was a huge, huge risk. Never mind, you know, those future costs. So what I learned is how real estate really can help build things for these big ticket items in life, especially with the buy, rent, holds real estate market. Now, what we started doing wrong is we were operating under huge misconceptions when we started out. We did way too much too soon, and although we already kind of, I look back, that we succeeded really right out of the gate with building this financial portfolio for our property through buy, rent, hold, we were distracted with all these other financial, you know, fancy techniques like rent to own, like student rental, like land development, like all this other stuff. Whereas really, if we just kind of kept our eye on the prize and focused on our why, we actually won the real estate game a lot earlier than we realized. So I'm all for buy, rent, hold, but I'm also all for telling people, you know, with this strategy, really take it for what it is. It's an active investment, it's not passive, and you really only need a few proper properties to really make a difference. Like BRRRR is an excellent strategy. I would definitely, it took us a while to learn how to do that properly. But buy, rent, hold, I'd still say it is an effective strategy, but it is a long-term play. It's not for this short-term, juicy, passive income like Rachel was saying with rent-to-owns, for sure.
Rent-to-owns have a passive element to them, but not when you're starting out. Like anything, when you're just ramping up and you're doing it from the beginning and you're doing it yourself, there is some blood, sweat, and tears you got to put into it, no matter how you slice it. And I think that's a big misconception as far as rent-to-owns are concerned. People think they can set it and forget it. Well, I have news for you. It doesn't quite work that way. You got to get to that point.
Yeah, and also with rent-to-owns from our experience too, it's a real, like, it's a lot of pieces to put together as well. So what you and Neil have achieved with the rent-to-own is huge, because a lot of people out there, they'll set people up, like coaches or rent-to-own companies, they set them up for the rent-to-own and then they leave. But the secret sauce to rent-to-owns is using a company that stays with you the whole time until the very end, because that is a huge part. And I've done several rent-to-owns, and it's a huge part of that transaction for sure. But you know, buy, rent, hold, I mean, it's good for the long term, and like if people really don't want the cash flow, like you, I know you're a BRRRR specialist, I think it's a great way. But once again, you have to know how to finance it properly. You have to know those steps, how to pull the money back out, and if your numbers are going to work. Otherwise, you can be left, you know, cash flow negative, out of pocket, or with a, you know, unsuccessful property. But another way of doing it too is you take that same buy, rent, hold, and like we were saying, your job as an investor is to learn to make any property cash flow positive or negative. So taking a single family home like we used to, and yeah, they're cash flow positive, which is the bonus. They have the long-term ticket items in life. It's what Gillian does. She takes that same hold. She can get those long-term benefits, but in the interim, she gets that juicy monthly cash flow from the student rentals.
So like sort of a hybrid of Rachel and Monika, because you know, I think everyone has this desire for a little bit of immediate cash in their pocket, right? I mean, that's really helpful. It's really nice to have long-term horizon. Be like, I need to do something tomorrow, or I want to go on this trip in a few months. So I love this idea of having a lot of cash flow, but a long-term strategy where you just sort of set it and forget it. And that was like what student rentals answered for me in spades, where I take a house, I divide it up into as many rooms as comfortably possible. I'm not in the sardine packing business, but to take a house, rent it to students, and then you rent the house by the room rather than to a single family. And so you get the benefit of this great cash flow every single month, but it's still a long-term appreciating asset where you're paying down the mortgage over time. So in 20 years, like, you've been getting this great robust cash flow every single month, but it also has this great long-term option at play as well. So it really is the best of both worlds, of like just a regular buy and hold that Monika does, and the rent-to-own where you get that great cash flow every single month. So you have to have a bit of a thick skin for student rentals. People think they're the kind of scariest things out there. It's like, oh my God, it's the crazy, smelly, beer juggling, crazy kids. They're gonna like take the living room couch and throw it into the pool like Animal House, right? And so as long as you know how to manage your tenants properly, it can be really, really, really lucrative.
Because there are a lot of tenants and toilets with
There
student
is.
rentals.
Yeah, but now that cannabis is legal, maybe I should get into student rentals.
Yeah.
Because I can handle those types of tenant challenges.
You know what, the funny thing about students these days, it's really different from when I was a student all those years ago. Like, honestly, we sat on milk crates in our house. Like, we had no furniture. We'd go dumpster diving to get the furniture. Kids these days, like, my goodness, their parents are actually your clients. It's really not the students anymore. The parents are the ones who are signing the lease. The parents are guarantors. Like, the kids are not paying their own rents. The parents are paying rent. So I have zero rental defaults at all. My rent is paid every single month by all these parents who are really careful about it. And parents wrap their kids' knuckles if their house is dirty. Like, I call up the parents and go, "This place is disgusting," and then the next call is the kids going,
Right.
"Bill, you better clean up that room. Like, this is horrible." So really, that's the parents who are your tenants. So it takes kind of that risk and that scariness off the table for the hellish stories you might hear about student rentals, and it's actually pretty secure. I mean, there's wear and tear on the house. There's no doubt about it. I'd say that's the biggest the risk about student rentals, but it's certainly not non-payment, and it's not about collecting for damages because you're on the phone with the parents. So it's a great strategy that combines both your strategies.
Yeah, I love it. I love the fact that all of you have found a different niche on the investing spectrum that works well for your life, your situations. And so in fact, we're actually going to sit down and dive into each of their strategies more in depth and really get a feel for student rentals, buy and hold, and rent to own. So you can look forward to that in the next video. Otherwise, if you want to find out more about the Mothers of Real Estate, jump into the video description down below. You can find a link to all their information as well as a link to their course. Otherwise, they can find you on social media on both Instagram and Facebook as Mothers of Real Estate. Awesome. So until next time, guys, remember, making money is a team sport. There's more than enough money in this world for us to all make it. But if you're not saving it, I mean, like, what's the point? Thanks. Bye.